We have been asked collectively to redefine what the trust means, how the truth looks like, and how the democracy must evolve in an age where perception can be engineered. So it's a deep test, and we have to respond to this.
Woo, welcome. You have now entered Mad Warfare, mutually assured distraction, where we explore the weird, terrifying, and sometimes hilarious ways war is fought today, and how we can all protect our minds before we go too mad to find them.
Oh my!
Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern.
How can you talk if you haven't got a brain?
Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern. Dangerous pattern.
We hear about disinformation, misinformation, buzzwords from the West. But India is a digital superpower with over 1 billion citizens online. They're quietly becoming one of the most important battlegrounds for cognitive warfare, and its culture may hold tools the rest of us might have forgotten. Can we learn something from the world's largest democracy that might help save our own? Today on Mad Warfare, that is what we're asking. What if ancient wisdom can help us survive this modern war? I'm Jocelyn Brady.
And I'm Sean Anthony Guillory.
Our guest today has worked across India's digital infrastructure, national security, and influence space. Now she's helping rethink how democracies, not just India, but everywhere, respond to cognitive warfare in a way that's more strategic, more ethical, and more human. Please welcome Devsena Mishra. Did I say your name correctly?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. I wanted to start with just this big, huge question, no big deal, but what do you think makes India so important for all of us really to be watching when we talk about cognitive warfare, information, perception, democracy?
Well, that's a perfect question and an interesting question. And I would say the perfect one to begin with, because that's why we are having this discussion today. So what makes India so important today when we talk about perception, information, and democracy? Before I start talking about that, I would like to begin highlighting that today we have a leader who don't just use technology as a tool, but who is working to establish technology as an important stakeholder in the spirit of democracy in a country of 1.5 billion. And that's revolutionary in many ways. So we are not just, when you talk about the digital transformation, we can say that, yes, it is happening around the globe, from east to west. But what sets India apart is this philosophical positioning of technology, not just as infrastructure, but as, I would say, a democratic actor. And that matters because at the core of every democracy, it is the ability to build common consensus. And in India, we are doing just that with the help of technology. Now, the obvious question is how? What's the psychology and philosophy behind this? And how we are doing it? But before I talk about that, let me give you a quick snapshot of where India stands today in terms of digitalization. We are building one of the most comprehensive digital public infrastructure, DPI, in the world, which integrates payment, digital identity, governance, and services. And our digital governance architecture, which is the largest of its kind in the world, it's not only scalable, it's inclusive. It's built for both the urban and the rural populations. So the journey of India's digital transformation is, I would say, historic in many ways. It started with the massive push to provide internet, even the remotest corners of the country. And if I talk about the numbers, in just one decade, we went from only 243 million internet users in 2014 to over 800 million internet users in 2024.
Oof.
Gotcha.
And in parallel to that, we launched the Aadhaar, the National Digital Identity Platform, which now integrates approx 1.3 billion people. Then came the Jan Dhan Yojana, one of the largest financial inclusion drives that opened over 500 million zero balance bank accounts. Why? To bring the unbanked into the financial mainstream. And if we add the story of the UPI into all that, UPI is our unified payment interface, which is our homegrown payment ecosystem that now handles approx 1 billion transactions a month. So what India is doing is really, I would say, not just a story of a digital progress, but of a trust, inclusion, and cognitive empowerment at scale. But coming back to the earlier point, that how our leadership is integrating technology into the spirit of democracy. So what happens in any democracy? When a leader gets a full majority, they often start to believe that their wisdom is the people's wisdom and their mandate equals a blank check. But what is happening in India, especially under the Prime Minister Modi, is that before any major policy move that could impact 1.5 billion, we have a technology-driven process that follows. So how we go about this? First, there is an awareness drive, just educating the people what's coming next. Then comes the participation, inviting the feedback, the engagement, the public discourse, and all that. And if the move is such a bold move, for any kind of bold move, we also check the people's preparedness using the tech tools and social signals. And our government is always open to rework and recalibrate the plan. And in this entire process, throughout this whole cycle, technology is not on the sidelines, it is an active participant. And that's what makes the case of India so unique. And that is what I would say makes India an important country to watch when we talk about the information, perception, and of course, the democracy.
Just like
That's setting the stage
Yeah.
right there.
so
It's
eloquently
here.
said. And I think it's so interesting to think of. I don't think I've thought of technology as like a character. And the way that you're describing it, I'm now thinking of it as like they're bringing technology to the table as if it's a living being or something that is in itself evolving and needs to be.
Yeah, a stakeholder.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I guess how is that different from the way America treats, for example, the way America treats technology? I think we have our technocrat billionaire, I think, is what most people think of when they think of technology here.
I would say that our people are wired to think that way. We are taking the technology like that. Maybe because it was not there for so long, and we were kind of in dire need of having something like that. So when we got the technological access, when we got the internet across the corners of the country, we decided to make it a tool of digital governance and of empowerment for the grassroots people as well.
I've actually been really impressed from a lot of them kind of like former military folks talking about cognitive warfare, usually in juxtaposition of stuff like China may be doing with messaging. Kind of wanted to just hear your thoughts in terms of how you feel India is in terms of adopting some of these kind of things around cognitive warfare and thinking about that, especially with the interconnectedness of technology and that kind of relationship you talked about, like the whole country has with it.
US approaches cognitive warfare from, I would say, a more technology-first approach. It's about the data dominance, the media control that you have, and because the property belongs to you, so you naturally have that edge over others, the algorithmic power, and of course, the background of the psychological operations. And many of these things were rooted in the Cold War doctrines, or I would say the platform capitalism. But what India brings is something I would say far more civilizational into the equation. For us, the cognition is not just a technical functionality or a tech feature. it is tied to self-consciousness, to the idea of self-awareness, to Vivek, the wisdom, or I would say Sahaj, the idea called Sahaj, which is about having a natural or intuitive approach to something. So that civilizational memory is there when we approach the cognitive warfare. And that is something that makes our version so different. And that is something which is unique about India as well. As far as the domain is concerned, honestly speaking, we are still in the very early stages. There is a common recognition among the policymakers and the think tanks, and even in the civil society, that yes, the perception warfare is real, and we have to do something about it. And this is a hard time when we should start thinking about having a more proactive cognitive warfare doctrine than just having a reactive policy. So that feeling is there already. But yes, we are still in the very early stages. And what we miss, I would say, is that a doctrine to deal with the cognitive warfare that inherently belongs to the India, that is something rooted in the Indian culture, but is still at the same time capable to counter the state and non-state influence actors. So that is something I would say we are still yet to begin with. We have not yet, I would say, figure out a way to bring our want to be relevant people, the people from the outside security fraternity, outside the ecosystems, into our defense grid, the psychologists or the media professionals, or maybe the people from different walk of life, from the civil society. But we can, and I would say we must. So yes, as far as the cognitive warfare version is concerned, our versions are different. And I believe it has to be, because our people are different, our traditions are different, and our threats are different as well. The nature of the threats are quite different. So,
Both in terms of why it needs to, I think, come natively, but that's also some of the real advantage I think that y'all have in this space, because it's something where from anybody outside looking in to India, it's who are really looking in, not just in terms of what Bollywood is telling them what India is, but really trying to look at like, oh my gosh, that many languages, that many cultures, that many different kind of narratives and whatnot. It takes a lifetime to understand all that within India. But then on the flip side, India looking outside very much knows their neighbors, and even the West. That's just asymmetrical, like advantage at its finest. So once again, I've been saying this. I truly do believe that once India really knows how to hone in, there's some brilliant psychologists and behavioral scientists in the country, really know how to like get them and utilize, and around the subject, they're going to be, at least on the cognitive warfare front, they're probably going to be the most powerful nation in the world. Anything that China can even think of, they're going to get swarmed. I just truly believe that. So this is also you at kind of the forefront and the standard bearer of this. I've always been really excited to talk with you about this. So yeah.
What would you say is for folks who might not be familiar with these terms at all, how we define cognitive warfare versus perception warfare?
So basically, if I have to define both to somebody who is not familiar with these terms, I believe there can be two possible cases. Maybe the person is a complete layman, never heard about the tech or any of its modern improvisation. Quite rare these days, but it's still possible. So if I have to define these two terms to the layman, I would say like this. Both cognitive warfare and the perception warfare are the latest version of the oldest game in the world, the game of manipulation. For centuries, we have had the manipulators, from ancient travelers to invaders to imperialists, to, I would say, certain kind of academics, sociologists, anthropologists, certain ideologues, psychologists, the people who have tried to shape what people believe, think, or behave. But what is interesting is happening now is that when these classic manipulators handshake with the technology, with the modern computing, with AI, or with algorithmic architecture, a new form of influence emerges. So I would say, if in a lighter note, that when the classic manipulation gets a tech upgrade, we have the cognitive warfare and the modern perception warfare. So that is for the layman. But if I had to tell it to somebody who is aware about the cyber and the technology, then I would like to go with a more deeper framework. And I would like to go back to the legendary Norbert Wiener, one of my favorites, the father of cybernetics, who once said very, very important thing. And I'm fortunate to, grasp some of his very classic books like The Cybernetics and The Human Use of Human Beings. Both were classic. And I would say very, very relevant in today's context as well. So Norbert Wiener once said that at the core of any system, whether it's a machine, a living being, or a society, are three forces: the message, the communication, and the feedback. For him, the influence was not about the brute force. It was about how a system reacts to the information it receives. So I would say the ideas that were developed by people like Norbert Wiener somewhere in the mid-20th century are now becoming quite relevant in this 21st century warfare. Because that's what we deal today: message, communication, and feedback. And if I have to, just give an analogy to the cyber warfare, we can, just make a point-to-point analogy with this particular domain, because cyber warfare is something we all are familiar with. We all have become or have to become familiar with, I would say. So if I have to just give a reference from there, I would say that before any kind of cyber warfare, the objectives are clear: infiltrate the machine, corrupt the network, or just paralyze the system. But cognitive warfare, or the perception warfare, the modern perception warfare, operates on a different kind of battlefield. Here we are not targeting the software, but we are targeting the perception. We are distorting the perception. And we are trying to intercept still the communication happening between the two people with the help of the middleman, the new kind of middleman. Have you heard about, I guess, if you are familiar with the cyber, you must have heard about something called the man-in-the-middle attack.
Yeah, the man in the middle kind of attacks. Yeah.
So that's when an attacker intercepts the communication happening between the two parties and just manipulates them and passes it along, without the other side realizing that the message has been altered. So I believe something similar is happening today with the information and meaning. A new breed of middleman is growing, and they are intercepting the truth before it reaches the public. So it's no longer about who controls the narrative. It's about how many layers the truth has to pass through before it reaches you. And that is where the modern perception warfare and the cognitive warfare both are quite powerful, because they gradually become invisible but quite effective. That's what's happening, I believe, in every democracy.
It's also a really wonderful way to think about. You're saying there's the message and then the communication. I'm just having this visual of like the message going out and then trying to put it into somebody's brain, and then the feedback and thinking about the way that the algorithms are, their appetite is for rage and fear, and so the feedback that we're contributing is building on that. That's kind of making me think that we're feeding this monster that is becoming part of ourselves. I wanted to ask you,
I think that abstraction is interesting, because just like Devsena kind of mentioned, the kind of thought, think of technology as this like living thing, and
Yeah.
you just described it as a monster. So I actually
In
do
fact, I
think,
would say Norbert Wiener once said that the ultimate fate of information in a typical American world is to be bought and sold in the marketplace.
Bought and sold.
he wasn't wrong.
What is it in India? What would be the, if it's to be bought and sold in America, what would be the counter?
Well, I would say that, what is unique about India is that we have a civilizational memory of, I would say, cognitive resilience. That's a bit heavy word, so we'll come to that later. But to begin with, I would say that we have a legacy of, long before the AI and the neuroscience, we had the frameworks for self-regulation, for self-consciousness, for things like introspection, for discernment, for ethics of action. So we do have that civilizational legacy. And when we approach these things, we approach with a very calm mind, with a very paused mind, and we are always open to new ideas. So one thing which is good about India is that we are not in a hype about anything. We take everything with a very calm and a poised mind, maybe because we have this background of dealing with all kinds of improvisation for centuries. That makes the case of India a bit unique. And that's where I coined this term called the Sahaj intelligence and the idea of cognitive resilience. Because in India, we do not consider the mind as just an information processor. We don't think like that. We consider it as a space for conscious awareness. That's where the idea of India and the West differ. We don't consider everything as just a technical tool or a technical feature or a machine. We think like that. We have that background. And that background gives us the things like Sahaj intelligence. So you may be wondering, what does that mean? Sahaj means something called effortless, intuitive, and very natural. So this idea comes from our, the long frameworks
Closest thing
that
I can
we,
think of maybe flow in terms of English. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
how does that idea come to our mind is that we have this background of civilizational heritage of consciousness. The way we mediate, the way we do cognitive research. We had that for centuries. But the warfare we are facing is new, but the approach to deal with the warfare was always there. So we didn't know that in the future maybe we'll have to deal with this in the warfare context. But yes, we always had those framework that were capable to provide I would say, the psychological immunity to the masses. And that is what we needed. So the idea of Sahaj intelligence is there. And, that matters because we are dealing with a world which is, I would say, full of outrage or overstimulation, where, the perception can be, engineered. And this is what's happening right now. But Sahaj intelligence is a kind of intelligence that does not counter everything or does not look at everything with only logic or speed. We also think about the clarity, the balance, and the stillness. That is something unique about India. It's about
It is.
it's about the inner compass that says, wait, let me observe. Let me not react right away. We have that.
Wow.
That helps us in dealing with
It does. I actually want to point. All right.
and
I
that
want
is
to point out
something
how
that our
this.
culture helpful. Yeah.
It's extremely helpful. And I'll kind of show like immediately another difference between that, which again I think yours is more advantageous than what we have in the U.S. And first, I'll give you kind of the analogy where I was in a meeting. It had a whole bunch of folks in kind of like on the U.S. side, like in terms of like national security, and we were talking with folks on the Ukrainian side, and their leadership puts both cyber and information operations together. And some folks on the American side thought that that was very weird because on the US side, where they're always fighting for budget, all these things are very separated and siloed.
Mm.
And they just thought it was the weirdest thing. And the Ukrainian folks are just like, what do you mean? Like they're the same thing. You know what? Like folks in Russia think the exact same thing too, because while the US, we separate cyber and information operations, like the go-to bread and butter that you're going to see in a lot of Russia is using traditional cyber means to maybe like hack a website, deface it, take a bunch of pictures, and then it's going to be on RT the same evening. So it's all in the name of information, but they don't see the difference between those two. Now with Sahaj intelligence, Jocelyn will know this is even why we put in like episode 3 with Rebecca. I've been trying to get more thinking on spirituality and warfare and mindfulness, and it's because it's always seen as over there, and it's seen as maybe something too squishy. But again, what you're saying right there just woves in everything in terms of the information, the cognitive, and even kind of the spiritual aspect. That again, I'm just frankly jealous on the U.S. side that we all those things are very much separated, and it's hard to get folks on the same page of thinking about
I would
all
say
those things.
over technical things are more over technical your side,
That's
and
fair.
that has its own advantages, but then on the drawbacks as well. Advantage is that you're leading in this particular domain called technology because you see everything as a tech, as a functionality, and you have that edge for decades. Others have no other option but to recall their legacy or recall their civilizational heritage or to deal with this, what you put
Yeah.
before the world.
That's also the thing, you said clarity, balance, and stillness, and it's just, I feel calm just saying that and hearing it. And I think because in America, it's like, it feels like it's more about, I don't know if you see like the business speak, the jargon, the obfuscation, the make it complicated, make it hard, separate. There's like a classism inherent to that, like make it harder to understand. So you have to learn the jargon and like speed and force, So
Logic, speed, and all that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's and like you said, there's a time and place for all of these things. There's a time and place to speak in shorthand and or jargon. Don't put that out there in the world. I didn't say that. And for force and for speed. But if it's only that, if the hammer only sees nails, then you're going to lose out on all of this other depth and wonderful, like you said, taking the time to take a beat and go, wait a minute, what is the intention of this message that somebody is sending to me, for example? Even just a second to think about it can make a huge difference.
That pause matters. Virality itself is a weapon.
Virality, yeah.
And the reaction is the new currency. So if you just take a pause and just, observe the thing, a lot of problem gets reduced. A lot of thing gets, washed
I like
away.
that you said that.
Yeah, reaction.
Well, yeah, a lot of the times they want to say, like, you'll hear some folks that think are the more nuanced, they'll talk about attention as it, but actually reaction actually may be the better way to put it.
Yeah, that's really interesting to think about. If we, teach Americans that reaction is currency, like you're basically paying people, you're paying all these people without even thinking, you're throwing money at them, if we can give that analogy.
That's good.
Versus, it's like your reaction is worth something. So don't just give it away.
Yeah, that feeling is data. The way you scroll past everything, that feeling itself is data.
Yeah,
For you, it's a feeling. For somebody, it's data. So you're just,
that's good.
What are some examples of what you're seeing in India, like the way that whether internal or external forces are trying to manipulate people? Does it look similar to what's happening in America?
Yeah, because, this is something that is, I would say, every democracy is dealing with, not just India or the USA. We do have the tsunami of influencers, and many of them were not intentional even. They don't know that they are operating in a narrative war field. I mean, not all the time that the misinformation agent is there from the foreign country or some government operative is there. They are just like the ordinary people, the everyday people. Maybe somebody could be a comedian or a cook, but they shape public perception intentionally or unintentionally without knowing that they are operating in a battlefield. And that is the case with India as well. And our case is more unique because we have the most young population in the world that lives online, on Instagram, WhatsApp, and YouTube. So imagine a YouTube, I would say influencer with say 5 million plus followers who just casually reinforces a very distorted version of history. Or maybe just trying to create some anxiety around the government scheme. Not out of some bad feeling or bad intention, maybe out of some kind of an emotion or ignorance. But the message that influencer passes is something very powerful. It travels. It influences the trust. It, erode the trust of the common people from certain institutions, certain systems. And that's why I say that the idea of government, idea of democracy, and idea of the nation itself gets challenged by these very casual, unintentional influencers. And that's the case with every democracy, not just in India or the USA. Sloganization is there, the power of slogan, and the power to amplify the slogan is also there. And sometimes they get trapped in the hands of the foreign actors who just amplify their message for their own goals. But the influencer is innocent, but he's being played out in the hand of a foreign actor. They are amplifying their message for their own purpose. And the risk is big because gradually, you don't need to conquer a country or to just, declare a war when you can destabilize a society from within just by making the people confusing, not sure of the reality, not sure of what is truth. So that challenge is there, and I would say that test is before all of us. And how we are going to respond to the test is going to define a lot of things in the future. It's, it looks like a doomsday scenario and a breakdown scenario, but I would say that it's a deep test. We have been asked collectively to redefine what the trust means, how the truth looks like, and how the democracy must evolve in an age where perception can be engineered. So it's a deep test, and we have to respond to this. And especially how India will respond to this with a background of its civilizational legacy of cognitive resilience and Sahaj intelligence. That is going to shape not just our future, but could offer a model for others as well. Because others are dealing with the similar thing, and maybe we could provide some kind of a model with our background.
I am just inspired by the way that you express things and what you have to say about it. And it's just so clarity, balance, and stillness coming through. To hear that, yep, there's a test, and the way, even the phrasing that you're using, it's a test. And how are we going to face it and what that says about us? And I'm thinking about when you're talking about these influencers who are spreading information, let's say, for example, about seed oils in America or supplements, and they think that they might even think that it's really, really good information they're sharing, and they don't realize that they're like firing bullets. Because to your point, they don't realize they're on a battlefield.
And that's why this unintentional influence is so effective, because it's invisible and you don't feel like it's happening, but it's happening. So that's why it's more effective.
Yeah.
Because when the people know that they are being manipulated, they resist. But when they don't know, when the influence comes embedded with the comedy, the culture, the train, the cookery shows and all that, they just, get used to of it. That's how the narrative become belief system. And when you repeat something and when something resonates repeatedly, the things get normalized. Things become acceptable. That's the biggest risk. Just like if I, just tap the table 5 times during the show, you will notice it. But if I keep doing this, it will become a part of the ecosystem. You will become easy about it. So that's the case with, unintentional influence. And these unintentional, I would say, some very well-intended voices in every democracy are now becoming the vectors of psychological manipulation. And there is always a risk of they are getting played out in the hands of the foreign actors who will just use them for their own purpose. And that's the case with the democracy.
So what do we do? I know you had some really brilliant ideas you're talking about when we spoke earlier about potentially like certification programs. What could those look like?
Yeah, so, the idea was that first we need to stop considering cognitive warfare, perception, management, or influence operation as just a defense issue or a technique. The first step is that. It is very systematic and strategic. So our response should be multi-layered. And the first thing there that we need to do is to provide certain training and certifications, just like we did for the Agile or Scrum or the cyber. Cybersecurity has lots of frameworks to deal with different kinds of threats. And when we equip the professional, the civil society with those kind of training, some kind of immunity, some kind of psychological immunity comes in. Imagine a course on, the cognitive resilience or influence operation strategy, tailored specifically for the government officials, for maybe the military leaders, media professionals, educators, in a single umbrella, like combining the relevant and the want to be relevant group. And why I always, specify this want to be relevant, there's a background behind that as well. Perhaps we are also part of that. Jokingly said.
Yeah,
like and share,
trying to be relevant.
like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe, please. Make the show bigger.
But this want to be relevant category is more hungry, more proactive. They are willing to learn all the time. And they were, very ordinary people before the technology. But with the help of AI and the model tools, all these want to be relevant people have become the ultra POMEX version. And similarly, the threats that are being generated in our cognitive domain are again by these want to be relevant people on the other side. And they are equally ultra pro max. So only ultra pro max can deal with another ultra pro max. So that's why we need to bring the good want to be relevant people into the ecosystem, because they can better understand the other side. Because the other side, those who create the threats, are equally ultra pro max in many ways with the power of technology, the AI tools in their hand. These are the people who understand how, the influence can be structured, how decision psychology work, how attention can be architected, maybe the mimetics. So that kind of knowledge is missing in the very traditional frame of dealings, whether it's about defense or the other cell that any government agency start. And that's the issue with, I believe, in India and US as well. We put the people with experience in the kinetic warfare in charge of the perception management. But think about this. Will you put a social media influencer in charge of a missile defense? You would. So why put a kinetic strategist in charge of defending the cognition? We need cognitive warfare practitioners. So that's why the first idea was to start the training and the certification program. Second, I believe, is equally important, because, India's approach is not so, I would say, unique, or it's not that we don't have our own problem. It's not that everything is so special about our things. We do have our own share of challenges, just like any other country, except that civilizational legacy that we have, our problems are similar. And in that context, I believe every region has something to offer. Like US brings innovation, China brings scale, India brings psychological depth. And that's what the world needs today, the combination of all these. So the second thing is that the public-private partnership should be there because, the platforms that are shaping the perception, they are private. Mostly they are private. But the consequences are public. So why not include the tech companies, the startups, the civil society into the solution? That has to be there. Third, I would say we can add an extra layer of civic education, starting from the schools. Why not educate the kids about how the algorithms shape the thoughts, how the influence works? Because in today's age, being educated is not enough. You need to be aware of how your mind is being shaped. So why not tell our kids? I mean, the way we, created a whole generation, or I would say build a whole generation on how to code. Now we need to build a new generation on how to think critically, consciously, and collectively. That's what we need. So that is the third layer that we can add. So this kind of improvisation comes to the mind when we sit together, when we brainstorm, when we bring the different category people into a common umbrella, non-conventional thinking. And it's better if we do it cross borders, invite the different viewpoints, just get together, bring certain perspective into the dimension.
What are the different ways that you think this can gain traction? What you kind of talked about, beautiful plan. How do you think that can gain traction in India? Like, who would you go first to try to implement that vision?
So the case of India is very much like the USA. We do have, the kinetic strategists sitting in charge of all this. I would say that they are not useful. They do have their own share of experiences, but they're not enough. We need to bring the outside in. So our case is very much like yours. We are also struggling to, get some kind of the buy-in from the government agencies. And they're like, wow, interesting idea, but come some another day. So that's the case with India as well. The Cognitive Warfare Agency was come out of that via the informal discussions with our own fraternity. And then finally, I decided that why not at least launch a platform, do something about it. Because
So we're really in the same boat.
The way you launch the podcast, because when you have done enough research and, have done enough work, and you can see that a bureaucratic delay is there, you can't, resist to not do anything about it. You have to launch something. So that's why we are doing our own share.
I'm trying to think again, like some way that maybe even through the entertainment industry, this could possibly gain traction in terms of in India.
It is now a possibility because now we have a leader who understands the power of technology, the power of creator. He offered, organize the gatherings around the creators and the content creators, the influencers, to just encourage them to spread the positive message about our trajectory. So we have this, I would say we are lucky to have this kind of a leadership who understand the psychology behind this, who has this frame in the mind that how the different kind of people, how the both positive and negative energies could be channelized for the higher, the larger goals. So that frame and that kind of a leadership we do have. That's why we see random events around influencers, around content creators. So the things are there. But yes, we are still need to figure out how to integrate all that into the defense grid in the formal way. That is missing in India.
When we spoke before, you'd mentioned that people will spend, 1,000 hours on their phone a day, but they won't spend an hour to vote. And I'm wondering if there's, because that's a critical part of democracy, right? How can we inspire people to be more involved in their democratic processes?
I would suggest that we need to first start with the very small habits or mindset shift. Small habits could help. First, we need to understand that awareness is the first line of defense. Just being aware is a good thing to start. Then we can suggest certain kind of different creative improvisation, just like this podcast or other version of the improvisations, different small habits in their routine life, like just a small mindset shift from consuming information to curating it. Just asking a question that, do I want to be an amplifier of noise or do I want to be a filter for meaning? And also we can suggest them to, if possible, check their inner temperature. If a piece of content is making you agitated, angry, or I would say self-righteous instantly, that's a red flag. And your emotional state is the first signal. Try to read it and try to understand it. That's the first signal. So we can suggest certain kind of small habits to the citizens. Once they will get to, the familiar, or I would say the used to of those small habits and the mindset shift, then we can channelize them into more activities or more improvisation. But the first step should be awareness, then participation, then small habits, very small mindset shift, and then, more creative improvisation. If we start right away that we are launching a department of cognitive warfare to help you rehabilitate yourself or to just, debug yourself, everybody will get skeptics. I mean, what's happening? I won't participate in that. So we have to go very slow. We have to make them, ease about it,
So,
calm about it. And
This is
just ask
good.
them to think, reflect,
Yeah.
journal, and meditate. I mean, we are having this conversation in the month of June. On 21st June, we are going to celebrate the International Yoga Day. So why not start a practice of meditating? Because, the cognitive resilience comes from stillness. You
Yeah.
need a moment of pause. Take a break from the noise. Sit some time quiet outside the noise. Take a pause. Learn to stay in the state of stillness. That will bring the balance. And that will help you to, face the world, I would say, with more strength, not confusion. Because when the clarity will come from inside, it will reflect outside. And that is where our culture has this thing to offer, the cognitive resilience. That will help you to bring certain kind of stillness, the balance of thought, the clarity, the calmness, the pause. I would say a very small and basic practice could be just pause. Take a pause. Don't amplify that you can't verify. Think before amplifying anything.
Just
Take
pause.
a pause. That's it. That should be the very first step. And when people do it, they can see a big change. Because, a calm mind would never allow you to participate in something that's not good for your society, for your nation. You won't just, react to the thing right away. You will learn to, I would say, don't react, not to react, but to reflect. And that habit of taking a pause can go a long way in that process. So just a small habit of taking a pause, asking certain questions to yourself, like, who is going to benefit from this if I believe this? That simple question could break this automatic trust loop that you are going through and could invite the critical thinking. As simple as that. And you can even diversify your information diet. Just like eating one food is not healthy, consuming single kind of a narrative is not healthy either. So try to diversify your information diet. Listen to different viewpoints, even the ones you don't agree with. That's why in our culture we have this saying that let the novel thoughts come to us from all sides, from all directions. Just listen to different viewpoints.
Wish we had that.
Then also protect your inner space. So slow down before sharing anything. Notice your inner spikes, emotional spikes. If a content is giving you emotional spikes, that's a red flag. Whether the spike is positive or negative, that's a red flag. Take a pause. Somebody's trying to hijack your emotional system. So take a pause, then protect your inner space, ask better question, who is going to benefit if I amplify this, if I, just viral this, diversify your information diet, and these are the small things that we can understand, we just spread the message among the public.
You say they're small. These are big, huge.
Even one
As
day
in,
I
like,
think that why not, encouraging everybody to just walk and to attach some kind of a monetary benefit with that walk. And the only condition is that you have to just keep your mobile phone switched off during the walk. So you walk and talk to the people around you. The more you will walk, the more dollars you will, get. That will reduce the problem of a lot of mental, stress and psychological problems. That is a small thing. So these kind of improvisation could be planned.
I can think of what I consider the really good studies on like addressing mis and disinformation and trying to do all these like debunking versus pre-bunking and all that. But that idea of, again, like these tiny steps, these like tiny habit sort of thing to kind of change that, I don't know if I've come across that
Well,
in our space.
we do have,
Do you know?
I mean, they're all, we got BJ Fogg with Tiny Habits and
That's habits, but I don't know. Does he talk about that in like information and potentially like mis and disinformation? I don't think I've
I
ever
don't
heard him
think
talk
it's
about it like that.
not applied like that, but I think I'm sure he'd be into, hey, chime money sound. Got an idea for you, BJ. Yeah, I think
Hey, BJ.
because they have talked about tiny habits in relation to your own relationship, for example, to your mobile device. So how you can lock it in a safe is often the solution. But
Lock it in a safe, yeah.
yeah, and then part of it is in America. We think, I don't know if this is true in India, but we associate part of the behavior change talks about immediate reward, and that is in BJ Fogg's case, he talks about creating your own reward, and that's a feeling. He calls it a feeling of shine. So, for example, let's say I want to get in shape, and so I'm gonna start doing more push-ups, and every time I do them, I go, "Yay, I did push-ups," and I'm just like congratulating myself. But maybe if we had a practice of more stillness, we wouldn't need to reinforce our own positive behavior changes with rewards.
And if we can't do that, that's in terms on the U.S. end. Again, another point for India on their advantage in this space.
And I just want to recap some of the things, as I'm now envious of all the listeners who get to hear this. We're going to listen to it again, but the things, Stephs, that I already see like a quote book of yours. Please make one.
Exactly.
You have, some of the tips for folks is don't amplify if you can't verify. Boom. Ad agency there. Don't react, reflect. Diversify your information diet. See that on like Chappelle's show.
Diversify your bond.
Who watch for emotional spikes. That's a flag. An emotional spike is a flag. So even if you're seeing cute little kitties, just notice. Pause for a second, and then go ahead and share it. You should always share cute kitties. Ask better questions like who benefits if I believe, who benefits if I believe. All of these are so sticky. And take a walk. Take a walk and be still. That's already a library of incredible things, tiny habits, tiny steps that people can take that I think will have such a huge impact if folks just take a second.
And I would say that Sahaj intelligence.
Yeah,
Sahaj,
beautiful.
we're going to make sure.
Something that comes natural to you. Something that's intuitive. The very common sense. The biggest challenge today is that people have stopped behaving normal. When was the last time you saw a normal person? Normal solutions.
Not even in the mirror, but go on.
Simple things, they does not, get a lot of traction. People are doing weird things to get viral. So having a simple solution, having a normal sounding solution, I would say if somebody has asked you a question and if you say, I don't know it, I don't have an answer, that's a normal thing. You are not a ChatGPT or a Google. You are not supposed to have an answer for everything. But people are so afraid to do that. They will say blah, 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 and all that, but they would respond because they are so hesitated to look normal, to talk normal, to behave normal. So that normality in the daily life is, getting vanished because of these tools that we are using. That's why I made that very small video that says that if in the middle of this chaos, these algorithmic echo chambers and all that, if you are able to keep a normal state of mind, congratulations, you have attained nirvana. This is a new definition of nirvana.
That's simple,
Being
huh?
normal is the new nirvana.
Normal is the new nirvana. That actually may be the episode name.
I want to just appreciate everything you've shared so much. I think we could, I think we could go on with you forever. You're so insightful, and I love all those tiny tips. And
Shout out to Tiny Tips.
are there any other are there projects or things that you're working on, things that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so currently I'm exploring this domain of cognitive warfare via my virtual platform called Cognitive Warfare Agency, where our focus is on researching and raising awareness around things like perception engineering, deepfakes, influence operations, and ethical use of technology in modern conflicts. And I am also proposing a framework alongside that, a framework for certification and training programs, much like Agile and cybersecurity, to equip the professionals, military leaders, media professionals, and even the civil society, the right tools to navigate and to counter the psychological manipulation. And a long-term project that I'm working on, I'm nurturing, is based on the idea of Sahaj intelligence. How India can bring clarity, calm, and consciousness into the global cognitive domain. That's a long-term project that I'm working on.
That's beautiful.
So that
Oh
these
my
are the
gosh.
things.
Three C's: clarity, calm, and consciousness.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And how can people find you if you'd like to be found?
The best way is to connect with through the LinkedIn. Just search my name, Devsena Mishra, and you will be able to find me. So best is through the LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can follow the updates via the platform, the CWA, Cognitive Warfare Agency, and you will get to know what I'm doing, what we are.
We'll make sure to link both. Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming, agreeing to be on our funny little quarter of the podcasting world, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jasulin. Thank you, Sean. I would say it's a perfect platform. You're doing a great job because, the
Oh,
dialogue,
gosh.
in a world where the algorithms divide, dialogue unites. So having the dialogue, and you are, inviting the diversified audience into your show. I can see that, and you're doing a great work in that way because, this is how we learn from each other, by inviting the dialogue, and collective dialogues bring collective immunity. That's what we need. I would end like this, that in our ancient India, the knowledge is not just about the power. It's about the liberation. And that's what we need today. A liberated mind in the weaponized world. A liberated free will mind in this current weaponized noise in the weaponized world. And the biggest risk that we have today is not, looking beyond your borders. That's the biggest challenge. This intellectual isolation, it's not going to help anybody. We are not going to win the cognitive war by shouting louder. We are going to win it by thinking clearer. And that clarity will come when the people will have a dialogue like this together. We'll have a conversation. We'll share their viewpoints. We'll learn from each other. Like I said, every region has something to offer. And if we combine it, that will make a perfect playbook or a cookbook to deal with the cognitive warfare.
I've come to talk with you again.
Come and be inside my head.
cancel me.